We're going to talk today about how to write an email to your professor. I know what some of you are thinking. Who needs help with this? But even if you think you are the email writing master, you still should watch this video because you just might learn something that is helpful. So you'd actually be really surprised with some of the strange emails and messages I've received from students over the years. I'm making this video to help you avoid making some of the mistakes that I've seen. And if you stick around until the end, I'll be showing you examples of some not so great emails that I've received from students that hopefully will be something we can all learn from. And as silly as this video concept may seem, I'm actually doing this for serious reasons. College can be very overwhelming, especially if you're the first in your family to attend. Part of college success is knowing how to effectively and professionally communicate with your professors. So let's get started. Step number 1. Do your research before you open your email. Ask yourself the following. What am I asking? And can I find the answer elsewhere? Have you read the course syllabus? Have you read all the announcements your professor has sent out through email or given in class or posted on the learning management software? Before you even think to send that email, make sure you take the common courtesy of reading the syllabus carefully as well as any other announcements and explanatory material provided. Nothing tells a professor that you don't care more than coming to them and asking a question they've already answered in the syllabus and in other locations, except perhaps for maybe falling asleep and snoring loudly in their class. Now I want to note it's perfectly fine to ask for clarification. Just show you've done your due diligence. You can write something like, after reading through the syllabus, I needed some clarification on, and then you write what's still confusing you. This approach shows that you value the professor's time and you're not a lazy student who wants to be spoon-fed everything. Okay, step 1 is done. Maybe you've already answered the initial question and don't even need to email your professor. If not, let's move on to step 2, addressing your professor. This can actually be really confusing, especially if you don't understand the stuffy feudalistic titles undergirding the academic hierarchy. Here's a basic overview of the academic pyramid scheme. At the bottom we have the dregs, the peons, the castoffs, also known as the adjuncts. Above this, in a slightly better position, are the postdocs, the visiting assistant professors, and teaching faculty who have a little more job security. Above that, we have the assistant professors. And above that, we have the associate professors. And above that, we have the full professors. And then above them, we have the chairs, the deans, the vice presidents. And at the tippy top, we have the president and the board of trustees. Let's focus on the lowest rung, the adjuncts, or sometimes graduate teaching assistants, where most of the teaching actually happens and where it can be the most confusing. This is an assorted mix of people who may have a PhD, a master's degree, or in some cases, only a bachelor's degree. Generally speaking, if they sign off their emails to the class as Dr. So-and-so, understand that this means they have a PhD and are insecure. You should not further exacerbate this insecurity by addressing them by their first name or Mr. or Ms. Just address them as Dr. So-and-so. What if your professor's highest training is a master's degree or a bachelor's degree? You can call them Mr. or Ms., but I'd honestly just say Professor so-and-so. It's kind of like overdressing to a social function. When in doubt, overdress. And in this case, overaddress. The obvious exception here is if the professor has explicitly asked you to address them in a certain way, including by their first name, if they're trying, some more successfully than others, to be relatable. When in doubt, just put professor. It's a good fill-all, and although there are stories of full professors getting mad at assistant professors for calling themselves professors, it's just the safest bet. Now that you've got the title figured out, we can move on to the professor's name. Make sure you spell it correctly. Perhaps because my last name is not very common and is a bit strange, students seem to struggle getting my name right. I actually find it amusing, honestly. It's fun to see the combinations that students come up with, but other professors can get offended. If anything, it shows that you're not good at paying attention to the details. These are basic details. Get them right. And now you finished step 2. Good job! Here's step 3. In your first line, be direct and precise about why you are emailing. It may feel abrupt, but it's actually helpful. When I was a student, I was worried about wasting a professor's time, and I'd start out by saying, I hope this email finds you well. Thank you so much for taking the time to read this email. And I ended up wasting their time with a paragraph of fluff. Jump right in. Here's an example. Dear Professor so-and-so, would there be a time to drop by your office to discuss my research paper? I have class and work during your office hours. I'm available Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 4. Would you be available during that time? So this might sound overly direct, but trust me, it's actually appreciated. This first line is also what you're going to put in your subject, something like meeting to discuss research paper, so the professor knows what you're addressing before they even open the email. After you lay things out, then you can add something more personable. But that doesn't come at the beginning. Here's step 4. Make sure that you provide full details. Put yourself in the professor's position. Is there any information that you could provide that would make helping you easier? Especially if it's at the beginning of the semester, it would be helpful to remind the professor what class or section you are in. They might be teaching 4 different classes and not remember what class you're in yet. This saves them time and shows common courtesy. This is where it might actually make sense to start out with a personal introduction at the beginning of the email. So for example, you could say, I'm in your History 101 class, section 16, and I had a question regarding, and then you tell the professor what your concern is. Again, provide helpful details that can save the professor time. Say you're having a problem with a group project. In your email, you can include the details of what group you're working with. In some of the bigger classes, it may be hard for the professor to remember what group you're in. What if it's a question about a weekly assignment? Say what specific assignment you're referencing. Again, it shows that you value the professor's time. After you've thought about how the email would be read, you're ready for step 5. Sign off respectfully, warmest wishes, thank you very much, or even sincerely if you want to be more formal. Step 6. Reread your email just to look for small grammar issues and that everything makes sense. There's nothing more embarrassing than making a foolish mistake and noticing it after you hit send. But if you do make one of those mistakes, don't sweat it. It happens to all of us. I even made one on the first page of my dissertation. And there you have it. That's how you send an email to your professor. So now as a reward for those of you who have kept watching, let's look at a few of those emails that prompted me to make this video. I'm excluding the dashed off emails that misspell my name and have really bad grammar. I get a number of those every semester. I'm just going to share 2 emails that I think you can learn from. Here's the first one. It starts with Professor, which is a decent start. At this point, I actually didn't even have my PhD, so this student was being extra respectful. And then the student wrote this. What is up with the amount of work being assigned right now? Can you catch the problem here? Informal, not super respectful, and conveying an entitled attitude. Okay, back to the email. It's more than all my other classes combined. What happens to the workload as the semester goes on? Now, the concern being raised here is perfectly legitimate. The student is concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to handle the course load during this semester. I would just advise not starting an email the way this student did and asking the question in a more respectful manner. And here's the second email example, which came from a condensed class I taught in which I was required to teach the same amount of material in a much shorter amount of time. I was cognizant that this class was going to be overwhelming for some, so I dropped the lowest quiz score and provided an extra credit opportunity. Also, the student who wrote the specific email was a student I had already given an extension to on one of the major papers of the semester. The student had also sent an email an hour earlier asking if they could improve on some of the assignments because they were just below an A-. That email, while questionable, wasn't as bad as this one. Mr. Although your syllabus very strongly words a rigidity in not rounding up grades, I would like to ask you to reconsider due to the nature of the condensed class. We were asked to watch hours of documentaries, films, and audio recordings a day in order to complete quizzes. For the student that has no other commitments, this may have been enjoyable. Okay, let's stop there. What are you implying? That my class was not enjoyable for you? Okay, probably not the best framing. Let's continue. For a pre-med student trying to study for an 8-hour board exam every day, this caused me a lot of stress. So you're telling me that you had more important things to do than really engage my silly class, like the other simple-minded students around you. Unlike them, you're doing important things, like studying hard to become a doctor. You can see how this phrasing is counterproductive. Let's continue. I found the material interesting, but... Okay, sorry, stopping again here. Here's another bit of advice. Anytime you write something nice and then follow it with a but, just know that you're negating the nice thing you say before. Okay, let's go back to the email. I found the material interesting, but I felt the class wasn't meant to be condensed in the way it was. Okay, so it's the course's fault, and in turn, my fault why you didn't succeed. This email is ending up not being very persuasive. So with all this build-up, here comes the big ask. Shouldn't that call for some leeway on a 0.35% grade boost? I would really appreciate some sympathy in how close my grade is to an A-. Just so you know, I was very sympathetic to this student, but they didn't get their grade boost. Was this the worst email I've ever received? No, I've taught a few sociopaths in my years, so I've gotten worse. But it is hopefully helpful in showing how you can end up sending messages in an email that you never intended to express, or that work against your stated goal. So think a bit harder about things before you write them and put the tips, not just here, but throughout this video that I've shared, into practice. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like since it's really hard for small channels to get their videos shown on YouTube. If you have any other questions, please comment below. If you have any other advice on how to write emails to professors or questions either about this or other aspects of college, feel free to comment below. As always, make sure to subscribe for other awesome videos and check out this other video of mine that the creepy algos think you might enjoy. And thank you again so much for watching.